All right, one of the things that I want to talk about is when we think about implementing the mathematical practice standards and the math standards, we really have to think about where mathematics happens in the world. And so often as math teachers, we have been tied sort of to our textbooks. And yeah, there's story problems in there where there's some real life application, but it's not a good authentic look at where mathematician is being used in the world. And so one of the things that we like to do is brainstorm a little bit where mathematics happens in the world. And it really helps me as I think about my classroom and what making my students be the mathematicians I want them to be, that's labeled in those mathematical practice standards, to think about where this happens in the world. So the activity that we're going to do is just a brainstorming template. And basically, you think about a central standard in your grade level content area, and then you work from there to incorporate as many of the practice standards as you can, because those practice standards are the anchor. We've got to get those into our instruction somehow. This template helps us to start brainstorming how to go about doing that. So we're going to start with a rich, complex central grade level standard. For me, I teach 7th grade, and so I might look at my content standards and see ratio and proportional relationships. And then underneath that, the cluster is analyze proportional relationships and use them to solve real world and mathematical problems. And underneath that, they lay out 3 standards, and I can begin to read through those and see some real life examples that they're giving me in that particular standard. In fact, in standard number 3, or in the cluster there, number 3, it says examples: simple interest, tax, markups, markdowns, gratuities, commissions, fees, percent increase and decrease, percent error. All kinds of possibilities in there where immediately I'm thinking this happens in the world. Okay, so I'm going to start with that as my central standard, analyzing proportional relationships and using them to solve real world and mathematical problems. So I would fill that in this box here. Then, brainstorm places where this concept is used in the real world. Well, the standard all by itself has already given me several examples, so immediately I'm thinking places like restaurants, stores, I'm thinking about shopping, I'm thinking about paying that tax, paying that tip, thinking about owning businesses. All of these ideas start popping into my head just based on what the standard is here and what it's saying. Also, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium gives us great ideas for where this is happening in the world, because that's what they're assessing on those things. So you can go to the Smarter Balanced website, you can look up those performance tasks, and they've got plenty of ideas to help us to fill in this second box. It says brainstorm places where this concept is used in the real world. So we would brainstorm all of the places where we see that happening. Then we want to select one that we really want to explore. Okay? Of all these places where we see this happening, we want to really pick on one that maybe we would like to explore. And for me, I guess I would think about maybe restaurants or stores. I think that's something that most kids have experience with. They love shopping. It's interesting to them. They like to eat out. So you're tapping into some of the things that they would find important in their lives. And I think that's always something to consider when you're trying to plan. So you want to consider that box as well, and some of those ideas. And then you can begin to see other things that are going to come in when you think about the context of those places. Restaurants, you're talking about tip and tax, and so immediately I'm thinking decimals, I'm thinking percentages, I'm thinking all of these sort of number ideas start popping into my head when I start exploring through this. And so I look through my standards and I can find those somewhere in my standards. In fact, I can see under the number systems, which is 7NS on page 48, apply and extend previous understandings of operations with fractions to add, subtract, multiply, and divide rational numbers. Under there, I see add and subtract rational numbers. Well, there's decimals, there's fractions, there's percents, all of those types of numbers. So I can start pulling in other standards in there. And then what standards for mathematical practice will students need to apply to understand the concepts? You can flip over to those standards, and which of these things can you incorporate into that idea? All kinds of them in here. In what ways can we start having them persevere through problems? In what way will they be modeling? Well, I can think of ways in which the MTI classes taught us to model with mathematics. When we're working with those operations of numbers, some of those MTI ideas and the models can start coming out, and you can start building those into your practice, and it fits nicely with what we're trying to do and making math more real world. So what I would like you to do now is pick a central standard, something that's rich and complex. You want to pick the level of standard that you want to work at, and then begin brainstorming through the process that we just went